Okay, we'll go to, we've got Jupiter here, but we're just going to take the Jupiter focus. So when you're looking at a chart, you have all the aspects, you see everything. You're cutting it down, we're cutting down, we're not looking at this now, we're just looking at one planet and seeing what's happening with it, and that makes it simple, one planet at a time. Trying to assume it all together and you know it all, and this is all the person, that's it's just the different steps to check each level of consciousness to see how they work, to see what insights you can get. You're not the person, he's the definition of it. But we're tuning in to see the implications of it. So Jupiter is his understanding. Okay, Jupiter, the understanding, it's in Pisces. There's a very principled moral understanding. Jupiter's in the sign it rules. He would have a very strong sense of what's right and what's wrong. Okay, so his sense of what's right or what's correct, it goes into the fifth house of kids, of performance, of play, and again, of sexual play and performance. So one is the trust in the eighth house, which has big challenges around it. The other is about the play. And how do you play, or what do you have to do? So is it to play with understanding, or to understand play, or to expand, to understand the lessons of childhood, or what's right or wrong, would be a very strong principle. Now, he could see that he would naturally have this instinct of what's right or wrong. That's the Jupiter in Pisces, a moral understanding, but it opposes his Mars. So this understanding, and how between his action and his understanding, there's a battle there. There's a tendency to push too hard against understanding. Well, you could see in his life, his idea, his concept, his understanding that kids, fifth house, children play, have opposed by Mars, his understanding that kids even are sexual, that behavior is affected by what people do, is affected by what they understand. Their understanding is based on their input from other people and how people are putting into and dumping on them, good or bad. If parents' relationship is bad, it's going to affect the kids. If there's the Oedipus complex, he came up with this. If your mother isn't together, or you like your mother too much, or whatever, it's going to affect what you're doing. So he had a fight with his own understanding, and intolerance, a tendency to fight against what's wrong. So if he would meet somebody and see that they're in an abusive relationship and they're holding it and taking it, and they're justifying staying in because they got their kids or whatever, his understanding would know what's right or wrong. This is not acceptable. He'd be trying to fight to get someone to break through that misunderstanding of that dependency. Jupiter is hard to figure out, but it's about your comprehension of what to do. He just, even in his own life, he would do so much, and yet he would push things and be certain aggressive. He pushed his ideas and his beliefs, his independent insights on relationships, on the sexuality of relationships, and how we navigate through that, and how it comes up to affect our behavior. He could see that, and he's understanding it, but there's a struggle, constant struggle around that, and even in presenting it to others, Mars in the 11th house. Other people would fight his understanding and his morality. How could kids have sexuality? There were great fights around this. Okay, so there were great battles. He had many enemies, or people disagreed with him completely. But he still had people who would align with that understanding, who would like what he's saying and appreciate what he's saying. But this is the Jupiter sextile Mercury. He could communicate it very easily from the 7th house. He could see this is what's wrong with your relationship. Come to it. But the Saturn squares is Jupiter. Now, Saturn squares Jupiter is not a bad aspect. It's where the expansiveness of trying to do everything, Saturn is restricted. It creates a good sense of timing, of waiting, of being patient. Saturn also squares the Mars, so they work together on that Mars. So Mars, aside from being weak in Libra, indecisive in Libra, and not so assertive or impulsive, the Jupiter can make it angrier, but the Saturn can make it more disciplined. So if something's done wrong, what are you going to work to do about it? How are you going to deal with it? So he would hold his ideas and present them, but in proving things to his colleagues, he would know the right timing. He would have the strong sense of the timing of when to do things, and then have to make all the extra effort and adjustments to go and do things that had to be done, that were responsible to be done. But he did work really academically. and build up his independent teachings on how it would affect others and how people could see it within a peer pressure environment of other psychotherapists or within the academic environment. He did fight for that understanding. But in this, there would be some restraint. The Saturn squaring is Jupiter, he would also be able to see where the limits of money and resources of who would fight things, who wouldn't. He would see that. And he would have his natural to get a practical take on what's worth putting up with or what's not. So people with problems would love coming to him because he would find ways of looking at it differently or releasing the old blocks. People who think they had it all together would be threatened by him because he would be sensitive to any type of abuse or aggression or forcefulness or passion or lust. Wow. So you could see them and see the implications of it, but you can also see a way of, you don't have to just buy into it. But convincing others to do that requires some therapy. Okay. Saturn. So you just slow down, like any one of these, you can take one whole evening, spend a few hours just on one planet and just reflect on it. Like I had some sessions I had with people that I took 12 months, took a year to do their chart. And usually this was advanced students. When I finished, I would work on the chart. We'd work on one planet a day, one planet each session, once a month. And we'd do that one planet. We do it in the natal chart. We see what transit, we see what we see everything about that in a lifetime and focus on it. And then the next month we would do on another planet until we touched every point in the chart really deeply. So this is the language, what you do with it. There's a lot of usefulness to this, but it's not a boring, tedious thing. You know, you're seeing it's so alive once by now you know the basic meanings, and it's by putting together, getting your confidence to do this. You got it right now. You got to do some other people's charts and do them and just check and get the feedback and talk to them. And this means this. Whenever you don't know something, you don't have to say it has to be like this. You say, what do you think? This points could be like this or like this. How's it work for you? You know, and you're then giving the feedback and letting other people see how you're seeing it, their chart, and they're telling you how it's working for them. And in that process, sometimes new ideas come out as how it can work to solve some of these things. Okay. Sometimes you don't know how to solve some things and you have to work harder to find ways to approach it or ways to deal with things from their chart. Your chart's kind of your inherent karma of your life. So we're looking at Saturn now, the inherent karma. Saturn is in Gemini, which is a little more flippant or independent than anywhere else. So there's a serious side. He has an independent aspect to his career. He's ready to work for his own ideas. Okay, the Gemini coming on the Saturn. The Saturn's in the 8th house of trust. He wants to be responsible and trustworthy around resources. He doesn't want to cost other people money. He's going to have a serious effect on social conscience. This 8th house of being socially conscientious. And he's going to be serious. It does mean there's some ambitious or restrictions around inheritances or finances come in, or it's just a cautious or conservative side of his life. He's going to work hard to not have to owe other people money. He's not going to want to be dependent or expectant. Okay, so you see certain things attitudes that will get. This is a Saturn that says this. He'd be serious about the relationship between his mother and father. Saturn and the moon, mother and father, both in the 8th house. Their relationship had a very pivotal effect on him. But it brought out his inhibitions, and it also brought out his ambitions. That's the Saturn. And the Saturn squared the Mars implies a strict father or a disciplinary factor. The moon isn't tied into that, but the Saturn certainly is. Saturn squares the Mars. It gives him discipline, it makes him work hard, but it's not easy. It's just, but it adds discipline that counterbalances the Jupiter anger. He can be angry, but he'd have to control it. Kind of like a martial art thing. You learn to do things with discipline, doing it regularly, and then if anger comes up, you don't react to it, you don't respond to it. You learn how to stay disciplined in the midst of it. So he had the ability to stay disciplined in the midst of it, to control his energy. So it's hard working. The Jupiter square, Saturn squares the Jupiter, which moderates and modifies the understanding. So he could see a conservative approach to how to conservatively as possible to approach what he did, what he knows. But he had such radical ideas. He could see where the conservative mainstream would be, and he would have to work in context to their ideas. So his real magic was he worked through his ideas of psychotherapy and sexuality and Oedipus complex and these things, and he worked them through in a way that other people could hear it and could see it on other people's terms. So the Saturn here, even though it's in Gemini, a little independently oriented, it has a positive influence on that square to the Mars, making this one, has a positive influence in the squares of Jupiter in that it limits the exaggeration and creates a sense of timing of I'm going to have to fight these guys. I'm going to have to go there. Oh, this needs to be done. I met these people, they made these demands. I'm going to have to do this many sessions. So he's always going to be more in demand or have many demands on him than he could probably keep up with. And he would feel responsible to have to do it as much as he could. The Saturn sextiles his Venus. So that tends to make one loyal or want to be stable in finances, not want all money, want to be stable. That stabilizes a bit of the Venusian impulse in Aries of, I got to get what I got to go. It has the ability to say, well, let's be patient here. There's a certain element of caution. It's just not a problem around this. Like all the separate pieces, the different layers, they'll come together as you go around the chart. But it's important to do each one planet first and get some initial insights. And at a certain point, they start dissolving and running into each other. Then you have a puzzle of insight of trying to understand how it's working. Whenever you get lost, you go back to one planet, the sign it's in, the categories it's in, the house it's in. I've been jumping through this without going through all of the categories. If we did that, we could do that. It would be tremendously insightful, but it would take, you get to one planet in a couple hours. Okay, this is your prep work in advance to go through all of those things. Okay. So when we look at Uranus makes no difficult aspects in the chart. It conjuncts the Mercury and it conjuncts the Sun. It's between the two of them. The Sun, Mercury is too far away from the Sun for it to be conjunction, but Uranus does conjunct both. So in unique independent attitudes or independent values, Venus, fixed signs, love, Taurus, having things, his ability to see how to independently have things and take a different approach on how the things you have affect the relationship. Who has what? You know, like, what would be a big thing for Freud? Just, let's see. If the energies of togetherness, what's equal? If you're married, how much of your mutual resources and your mutual attention goes to your friends versus your wife's friends? How much of the joint resources goes to reinforce each person's friends in the relationship? In those days, usually the woman would reinforce the guy and his relationships and not so much her own. So those type of trade-offs, he would have an independent take on how to get free, how to be a little bit more independent on relationships. That would have been an exciting, radical thing in those times. It certainly was. He's under psychotherapy. He sees how to work through the relationships and break through to get these ideas. It's brilliant.